Distinguished adventurers, welcome to Idle Insights. I am not Todd Kenrick. I am here, though, with a fabulous person that I get to talk to because I've taken over Idle Insights for the day. I'm Lauren. I am the content creator here for Idle Champions. And with me to chat about joining our team and D&D and mini painting and whatever else we decide to chat about is the lovely V Muse. Welcome.
Hi, thank you so much. I'm so excited to sit and chat with you today.
Thank you. I am too. We also have our lovely moderator / producer, Martin, in chat, who will be grabbing questions from our audience that we will be getting to shortly and passing those along. Ooh. But as one of the newest people who has joined the Idle Champions family, I thought I'd start there and we'll work our way back. So
sounds good.
You are our new partner manager. Tell us. This is going to be a weird question to ask, and I don't mean it to sound aggressive, so I'll try to say it as nicely as possible. What do you do?
What do I do? That's a very good question. What do I do? No, partner manager is just basically a way of summing up that I am sort of the, let's call it sort of like the event organizer is a good way to sort of compare it to. I'm the one who makes sure that I'm reaching out to content coordinators, to partners or content creators, partners, and things like that, relaying information, going back and forth, making sure this bit of information gets to that person and everything like that. And then just helping out with marketing team related things as well. It's, you know, it's sort of a making sure all the pots on the stove are getting stirred and taken care of.
That makes sense. And considering how many content creators we work with on a regular basis, just, I mean, with all of the champions that are in the game, that's a lot of people to try to juggle and coordinate, plus the people who are coming up. So that's, it's got to be, it's got to be interesting and exciting. And then also just a lot of emails.
It is a lot of emails. Yeah, I'm actually, because I'm on East Coast and most of y'all are on the Pacific side of things. So for me, I get this lovely little window of 2 hours where I sit down and that's my email time. Like that's where I'm getting all the things taken care of and taking through my email list. And then it's like, okay, and then meetings. Because those are a thing too. Lots of meetings.
Oh, the meetings. Yeah.
All the meetings, yeah.
You get into an awesome job like this and where you're like, I'm working for this great company, for this game that I love and everything. And it doesn't matter how awesome your job is. There's always those like, meeting and some emails. There's always kind of a little bit of the monotony that has to happen to make the awesome happen.
But it's great. Awesome.
It is super fun. And you get to talk with really cool people and exciting people who are doing really neat things. The interesting thing, especially in the last couple of years, is how many of these types of jobs have come out of our industry that were never even a thing. And I think a lot of people who now have jobs like yours and mine and other people, when you get asked what did you do to get this job? That's a really hard question to answer because no one has a really good pathway anymore. So what I'm curious is, now that you've done this for a little while, instead of the how did you get this job, what I'd love to know is if someone is watching and wants to have that job in the future, what are some of the skill sets you have right now that they should be working on building?
That's a very good way to approach it. First of all, you need to be able to work with a variety of people. Because you're going to work with all types. It's just the nature of the game because you are exposed to a plethora of personas. You have to be able to interact with each individual in terms of how they think, how they function, and what reaches them the best. I have the home game advantage of having once been a teacher. So for me, a lot of this is now second nature because I literally went to school for it. But being able to work well with people, being able to communicate effectively on social media, because that is something you will need to be able to do in terms of how you present yourself, how you interact with others, the community you build, because quite frankly, that does come into play when you're doing this stuff, even behind the scenes for another company type of situation. It's also good to be familiar with the community you want to become involved with. So that's things like joining a variety of groups, jumping into certain pages, following discords and everything like that, and making your presence known without being obnoxious, which I feel funny saying, but it's something where you want to join a community, but you don't want to basically. There's this meme that floats around from Thoroughly Modern Millie where she like opens the door, I have arrived.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't do that. When you start getting involved, you don't want to make it all about you. You want to make it about what you can bring into the community. Because when people see that you want to help the community out, that you want to be part of it and help enhance it, that's where people are going to start paying attention to you. If you start making it all about, hey, I'm doing this, hey, I'm doing that, that starts becoming off-putting sometimes. So it's about being involved with the community, not making the community pay attention to you. It's also things like, get involved with other interests too, being well-rounded. Because a lot of times what you are working on professionally, you may have something that interests you outside of the box that if something comes up, you're like, oh, wait, this is kind of like when I was doing this, maybe it could be applied to here. So it's helpful to have, more than just one focus in your own life, like do other things, explore other, video games and board games and things like that. So I think that's sort of the top layer of what I would recommend to start getting involved is really what it boils down to.
I think it's really important also to have those other hobbies and interests that are not things that you're monetizing to make money on, that you're just doing for fun, not just to be a well-rounded person, but also there's a lot of times in TTRPGs, in video games, in kind of this industry in general, you are passionate about the job, you're passionate about what you're doing, and especially when you're working from home or hours can get long and it can feel like you're just doing this all the time, having that chance to get away and do something that has nothing to do or is only tangentially related to your job is super important. As much as I love playing this game all the time, it is really good to go play other games or not play a game, like watch a movie or something. So
absolutely. No, that's very true.
It can be hard, though, to step away.
Oh, I mean, yeah. There are times it's like just you have to walk away, shut down the computer, be like, I'm going to give myself 3 hours to go and do this, just to be sure you're not so focused on everything in front of you.
Absolutely. So you've joined Idle Champions. You're helping work with all these content creators. You've probably met a lot of these people in the past, in person or known their characters from other streams. Were there any characters in the game that you were excited about then working with those people or vice versa, where you're like, there's my friend, I want to have them in my formation, or like the opposite?
Honestly, well, first of all, I was excited to see that I was still going to be getting to work with people that I enjoyed working with. So for me, that was just like, yay, I still get to keep in contact. In terms of in-game, it was basically like, my friends' characters. I'm like, I get to see what so-and-so's character gets to be like. And I'm not going to name specific names because heaven forbid I forget someone will be like, why didn't you mention me? No, I'm kidding.
I'm just going to sit here and think about my character. When are you going to mention my character? No, that's fine.
No, but really, it's been fun to be like, oh, wait, that means I can. And just kind of, I'm still very fresh and new to the game. And I'm trying to take like little quiet moments to sit and play around with things. But it's been cool to kind of be like, oh, this is what happens when I do this. And oh, wow, that's a cool way to use this character. I wouldn't have known, like just little things like that. So it's a fun experience getting into the game of Idle Champions and also seeing how all of these characters that I have been familiar with because of the streams, because these people are my friends, seeing how they've kind of been incorporated into the game and given their own little twists because of the game. That's been a really fun aspect.
Yeah, it is. It is. And from the other side of it, I do often feel bad when I'm putting together formation. I'm like, I want to use this person and I can't for whatever reason because of the formation. I'm like, but I like them. It's my friend. I want my friend in the formation. Or when Orkira is in the same slot as other champions and I really want to use the other champions, or I want Orkira to be with the other champions. I'm like, but I can't. Oh,
I can't do that.
Oh, I can't. So a lot of people probably know you from before this, from doing mini painting.
Yes.
Lots and lots of mini painting.
Yeah, lots of it.
Yeah. So, I mean, so you were working for WizKids before this and you were doing all this mini painting and stuff. What is it specifically about minis that you gravitate towards? Because you do all kinds of crafting, but minis has kind of become a thing.
It has become a thing. Minis have always been something I have been involved with and intrigued by. It was just sort of in different forms. Because when I was little, my mother was an interior decorator. So I grew up with like learning how to sew at a very young age, learning how to make doll clothes at a very young age, to the point where I actually started making my own doll houses out of just things around the house
Oh.
for my dolls to have. So I was making these miniature setups for my dolls, and it was something I always loved doing. And then, of course, like, you grow up, you stop playing with the dolls for a little bit. And I still kept up with an arts background. So for me, it was still doing painting and everything like that. And then down the line, someone said, hey, you're crafty. Hey, you paint things. Hey, you also play this game. Have you heard of miniatures before? So it was one of those things where the first mini I ever painted was a Hero Quest mini.
Ooh.
And yes,
What was
painted
it?
that one up. It was, I don't remember what his name or the name of the creature. I want to say it was a gargoyle. But it's the one that has like the horns that come out of the helmet, and he looks like a gargoyle.
Okay.
Because I have actually haven't played Hero Quest. I've just painted the minis.
Enjoying
But it was
painting the
that
minis
one.
is, I mean, that's
Yeah.
kind of awesome. So
Yeah. So it was that one. So it was fun. It's like, okay, yeah, let's get some color onto this fellow who was like all gray, I believe. So I got color onto it, and I was looking like, oh, this is really cool. Now at that time, it was extremely basic layers. I didn't do any highlighting, nothing like that. I didn't know anything about that quite yet. But for me, it was like, oh, I got to do this little bit of artwork in this little bit of time. And hey, look, it's something fun and colorful now to kind of have to use. And that kind of stuck with me. And it just started turning into exploring other minis and trying out different models and everything like that. And it just sort of built up over itself, quite frankly. And yeah, minis just stuck with me because of the fact the more I was learning about mini painting, the more I realized there was a lot of stuff that applied towards what I had done in the past with oils and watercolors and everything like that. So it was one of those things like, oh, I get to do all of this stuff that I used to do, and there's time for it.
and there's all this extra time. I have more questions about minis, but I'm going to pause for a second because it looks like there's a giveaway going on in chat. So if you are listening to the show and want to jump in on a giveaway, we're going to be doing a giveaway of, I believe it's a group of chests. I'm not sure, but definitely jump into the chat and join that. Also, if you have questions for V, you can put question in all caps in the chat and ask your question, and our amazing moderator, Martin, will grab it and put it into a fun little document I got over here, and we'll get to those questions a little bit later. But with that, we'll head back over to questions about minis. I love that you started that by talking about the very first mini you painted. Is that a thing that you found other people remember keenly? Like, if they're going to talk to you about minis, they're like, I remember the first one I painted was a...
Yeah. No, it's a question I will jump into oftentimes when I'm painting with guests on streams. People seem to very much remember their very first mini because it is that stepping stone for what got them into wanting to paint miniatures. And also, there seems to be this thing with mini painting. More often than not, I find that people have some trepidation about getting into it. So for them, they've maybe bought the mini, but they haven't gotten the paint yet. Or they have the paint, they have the minis, but they're still not quite sure how they want to paint it. So sometimes even getting into your first miniature can take a little bit more than just buying the supplies for it. So it becomes this memorable moment in your life when you're like, hey, this thing that I've had sitting on my desk for, a month, I finally painted it and I shared it, and people were like encouraging me and everything like that. So yeah, painting your first mini is definitely, it's like when you learn how to first drive. It's that kind of feeling. It's just something that sticks with you. And a lot of people have fantastic stories behind it, why they picked up the miniature, what happened to the miniature. Even some people like, yeah, I painted the miniature and then I learned how to paint more minis. Then I took that first miniature, stripped it down and repainted it. So you just get fun stories along the way, which I think is fantastic and sort of this common experience for everyone to share with each other.
Do you think more people, their first mini is a monster, or is it a character that they have picked out?
I'm noticing monsters seems to be the trend.
Ooh.
Yes, there are definitely more monsters that people gravitate towards. I think it's because usually the monster minis are a little bit bigger. So for people, it's a little bit easier to, no pun intended, attack the monster miniatures than if they were to do more like PC style minis.
Also, it's hard to resist a dragon.
Yes.
Those dragons are gorgeous. And
she says, looking at the 10 above her head right now.
I was looking at the one right behind you, that very gorgeous
that
one, and then the skull, and a couple
There's a
fun
skull. There's like, I did a count one time. And I think I have like 27 dragons in this room right now.
All right, of the D&D dragons, are you missing any of the standard colors, or do you have one of each?
I have one of each.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I've been trying to do a little bit of collecting, and trying to catch up with the dragons is hard.
Yeah, I have one of each, and I'm quite happy about that one. So,
Is there, I'm not going to ask the choose your child, what's your favorite mini, but is there recently, what's your favorite mini that you used recently?
That I have used recently?
Yeah. I mean, considering what's been going on in the world, that recently, maybe months and months ago, that's fine. But...
Well, I mean, there's this one that I use every single day because it holds one of my favorite D20s. Aww. This is it's a Pathfinder adult blue dragon that I painted up, and I realized that its tail curves around just perfectly to hold the big D20 in there. Yep. So this actually sits on my desk, and this is the die I'll grab when I need to like do quick rolls for checks and everything like that. So that I use every day.
There you go. I love the blue on that. It's almost it's got a texture to it. Like, you pulled it up, and for a second I was just like, it's a blue jeans dragon.
It's a dragon.
It's a Canadian blue jeans dragon. I love it. I love it. It's wearing Levi's. It's great.
Yeah.
But yeah,
it's one of the it's using one of the techniques that I like to do. It's going back to like oil painting theory. So it's shadow layers, then I put inks and washes on top to stain the color or the black and white underneath, and it's a really great result. So it's one of my more favorite minis, but there are definitely others.
Oh, I'm sure. Mm-hmm. And certainly there's Tiamat that everybody's been drooling over, but that thing is huge.
Oh my God. Isn't that? Oh, last I checked in on her, she is literally like the wingspan is something ridiculous, like from my sternum to the tip of my pointer finger.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. I'm also more petite, but still that's a decent size. So yeah, that's going to be a mini when it comes out.
That's the mini that is a project that you get together with like a couple of friends, and you go, you take the wing, you take that head, and I'll take this head. It's like, there's a weekend.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I have painted a Tiamat in the past, but that was a incense burner that I found at Walmart. So it's like up on my channel. So I've already, I've got the groundwork laid out for how I would paint, a massive Tiamat, but it's definitely very different scale from the one that's going to be coming out. That's for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. And how much of that joy of like hearing about people's first opportunities to paint minis came to be when you started doing the paint nights? Because like you said, that is kind of a question that you've been asking. And then also you've had a lot of guests on that show that are brand new to minis. They're like, this is my first mini. Like, was that part of the joy of finding people who'd never painted before?
That was sort of the inadvertent luck of it. There was a list of people we were hoping to have come on just because they're wonderful individuals to, interact with and speak with. So it'd be great to have them join. And for me, I'm comfortable instructing for new painters. So it just so happened that we were getting a lot of people who were new to painting, and seeing them get into it, watching them fall into the zen of painting, which is a little aspect that I adore. And then by the time we're done, they're like, oh my gosh, I'm hooked. Tell me where to get more. Tell me what else to do. Like, for me, that's just sitting there and kind of like, it's like when you make a really good meal for someone and they clean their plate, not your plate. Well, if they're cleaning your plate, then it's really good. But they clean their plate and they've just enjoyed it. Like, it's that type of feeling. It's like, yay, they had fun. They enjoyed, they're satisfied. And, hopefully they come back to do some more type of situation. But that has been a fun little, result of bringing in the individuals who have participated so far. And I mean, I love the fact that Herb and Huge, they jumped into doing the Slad's nails. Like the claws, it turned into a mani-pedi session. And I was dying because it was such a fantastic idea that I even went off script and I did something with my Slad. And it was a fun moment. And it was their eagerness and their enjoyment of doing something new that contributed to that little, side quest of doing something different with the claws.
That's awesome.
So, yeah, it really is great.
And those paint nights have been a lot of fun for those of us who are watching, who are new to mini painting and getting into that. And there's like tons of other resources that you have out there for people who are looking to get into mini painting. You've got YouTube, you've got all sorts of stuff. If you had to point someone in a direction, hey, I'm new, where would you recommend I go? Is there a specific place that you'd recommend someone start?
In terms of where to get into things, there are actually some really good beginner mini painting groups on various social media. You can check out Facebook. Discord even has some beginning painting groups as a means to get started, because I find the groups that are targeted for beginners oftentimes are extremely supportive, because everyone is sort of starting off in the same place and they remember what it's like to be new and not know what a wash is, things like that. So if you really want to get into just starting, check out groups, but then also go onto YouTube. YouTube has a huge amount of resources for videos you can watch. My own channel, and there are other mini painters out there who do a fantastic job of taking time to show people how to go through and how to paint various miniatures. So even if you've purchased a mini that you want to paint, you can go into YouTube, you can type in how to paint and type in the name of the miniature, and I can guarantee you'll probably get at least 10 videos. And then it's just sort of hopping around and seeing. I'm sorry, I just looked at the chat and I saw Tabletop Santa. Hi. That's another good one to check out. And it's one of those things where if you hop around and take a look at different artists, you'll find that there are some who resonate more with you because of their techniques. They might have an approach that's more along the style of how your eye as an artist works, as opposed to someone else tends to paint their minis, because some people go hyper realistic and people will lock onto that. There are others like myself who tend to paint the miniatures more like what the original artwork in the books and everything look like. I like trying to make something that's three-dimensional look more like a sketch or more like watercolor or things like that. Then there are people who are able to jump right into it and make these look like, really cool graphic novel characters as a result. So there's so many different varieties of painting. When you get into it at first, notice who you tend to want to watch more and follow more, because chances are their eye is lining up with your eye and what you want to do with your miniatures.
I want to find if there's someone who's done like a pixel art mini.
There is.
I figured I wasn't thinking of something new, but as you were listing off some of these other styles, I'm like, pixel art could be really cool.
Yeah. It's like they almost try and like square off certain aspects. It's really cool. And it's using black lining, so it's a fun little twist. There's really so many different ways to approach miniatures now, and I love it because it's so creative and so varied. It's just, I don't know. I like the fact that you can look around and sort of change things up. Like, you can even take a break from your own technique and try something new, which is great.
And the fact that you can just, like you said, strip it and try again is a thing that I think a lot of people forget about, because, you paint and you're like, well, this is now forever, and I cannot ever touch it again. And the idea that, nope, I can just take off all the paint, or I can paint over it, or it's fine. It's absolutely fine. I love that. And it's the couple minis that I've painted, it has been very helpful to remind myself of that, of like, not just the Bob Ross happy mistakes idea, but that like, if I really don't like this, it's just paint. I can just take it off and do it again, and it's fine.
Yep. You can always start over.
Yeah. And especially in the last couple of years with the number and the ease of getting 3D printers, have you had a lot of opportunities of creating your own minis in order to paint them, or having like something 3D modeled that you've been able to paint?
I have the lovely advantage of knowing a few 3D file creator types, 3D sculptors. So there's a friend of mine, Miguel, who I have gone up to me like, hey, I need this. Could you make it for me? Like just like a lizard folk person, but it happens to be an alligator holding a frying pan and wearing a chef outfit. For reasons.
I mean, it's D&D. None of us are going to question. We're just going to, the questions are not going to be why. It's going to be, ooh, tell me more about this character.
What's going on here?
Frying pan. Okay.
Yeah. So, and he created it for me, and I absolutely love it. And in the result of creating this one, the chap's mother was also created. So we have an alligator with like rollers in her hair, wearing like the fuzzy robe thing with bunny slippers. And I just.
With a rolling pin?
I think or was she the rolling pin? She may have been the rolling or the frying pan, and the other guy may have been a spatula. And we had kitchen stuff in their hands for sure. But it was such a wonderful little, divergent way of thinking about a miniature. It was just, yeah, it is cool when you can kind of,
craft from the ground up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Speaking of crafting from the ground up, we're gonna diverge from minis for a second. You don't just do minis.
No.
There's all sorts of other stuff you do. I'm looking at, and I know it was a kit that you put together, but I'm looking at the musical instrument behind you, which I still have to make mine. I'm so bad. But you got a hurdy-gurdy back there.
Yeah.
But I do know that while that was a kit you put together, you also did a lot of modifications to it and then also painted it and did all sorts of stuff. So is that something that you really enjoy doing, of like grabbing these already pre-made kits or already pre-made models or something and then doing the kit bashing, doing the altering?
Yes, I'm the type who will see something and be like, but what else can I do with it? I will do a lot of kit bashing to my miniatures outside of when I do like a standard, like this is a paint night setup or this is a how-to video. When I can go and sit and paint my own minis, I will inevitably go through and be like, oh, but wait, I could do this with them. Like I have these two little Reaper dragons who are sitting in front of me right now. And they basically, I made the base for them. So they have this cute little base that they can sit on. But I was like, okay, it's cute that they're sitting together like this. But then I also made it so you can remove them from the base so that I can move the dragons around when I need them for play.
That's
like
adorable.
Things like that. I will constantly be doing little touches like that, or like bigger modifications. Like I've kit bashed together a couple of different minis to look like specific characters, like Strahd. But like I like kind of taking pieces and putting them together and seeing what I can create from what's already there too. So it's sort of like a reduce, reuse, recycle-esque approach to minis.
Yeah. See, now I want to go down to like the Goodwill or a local thrift store and be like, what minis can I find? And let's see. That's a whole show. That's a whole like thrifters mini crafter show.
Minis. Well, that's how the whole Tiamat from Walmart came about, because I saw this incense where I'm like, that has 5 heads. It's a dragon. I'm like, you're coming home with me. And it's cool because it also, because it's an incense burner, you have smoke that comes out of their mouths.
Oh, is that where the actual... Okay, that's awesome. For whatever reason, I was just picturing like putting the incense into like holes in their back.
I'll share a picture with you later. But yeah, no, it has like, smoke will come pouring out of their mouths and everything like that, and the nostrils, and it's really kind of cool looking.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
That is super cool. But so besides some of the kit bashing that you've done, is there recently, has there been something that hasn't been a mini that you've created that you've been pretty happy about?
Oh, I've made a couple crowns. Ironically, for related purposes for what I'm doing later this evening.
I will have questions about later this evening later, but yes. Yeah, put a pin in that, yeah.
Yeah, so like I've done things like I've made crowns. We talked about like I've made this necklace. I do crafting and, creation in other avenues as well, but a lot of times that's all stuff I sort of keep more on the quiet side into myself, because I don't want to turn it into an inadvertent like, hey, could you make this for me type of situation, because sometimes there's just little hobbies that I want to keep very close and to myself, like the golem that I am with certain activities.
I think that's absolutely normal, and especially like if you think about what we used to do as creators before the internet, like the idea of sharing everything on Twitter all of the time is a very new thing, and it can be weird to share a hobby, especially if it's very close to what you do for a living. And have people be giving you suggestions or want to buy things from you, and then constantly having to explain, oh, no, I'm just doing this for fun. I know we've both experienced that. I'll transition this. Watch this. We've both experienced that with D&D games that we've played offline, but then posted online like pictures of, hey, we had a fun game today. And then invariably some wonderfully kind person misunderstands and is like, where can I find and watch this show? Not a show.
No,
but
it's a game.
yeah. And, it's one of those things in where sometimes it's just easier to not post about it because then, But speaking of later this evening and shows that people can watch.
Yeah.
So we'll start with Black Dice Society, but I am going to talk about your D4 guest spot because I have to. But let's start. Let's start with, because you do actually do live streaming for D&D. You've DM'd, you've played, and I think the most recent thing is Black Dice Society. Tell us a little bit about how you got involved with that amazing, scary, wonderful, content warning filled, absolutely fantastic show.
That stemmed from the fact that both B. Dave and myself have very similar backgrounds in our degrees. I went to school and my focus was Victorian Gothic literature. Like that was literally my seminar for graduating type of situation. I have always loved those books, you know, Dracula, Jekyll and Hyde, The Lady in White. And he and I were chatting about that. And he came back around and goes, hey, I have this project coming up. Would you want to maybe consider jumping in as a guest player? And so that's really kind of how it all got started. He's like, you know, Strahd. And it's like, Strahd. And yeah, so
hey, I have like 3 minis I kitsch bashed from them. You know,
like,
okay.
Wait, you know, spooky, creepy mind play. Yes. So yeah, that's sort of like the quick story behind how that all came about. But I was thrilled to become part of it, even as, you know, jumping in as a guest player every so often, because it's such a fantastic storyline and game and what they're exploring and everything you can get into with the different dark realms. It's just like, or domains. Sorry, I'm blending words. The different domains and the different dark lords. There we go.
It's okay.
She can be, yeah. So it's one of those things where it was just once I got a chance to sort of look through and get a feel for everything, it was like, oh yeah, this is right up my alley. Please, let's do.
And you've been able to guest star multiple times and then be gone for a little while and then come back. And it's an amazing cast, but it must be weird to do the jump in, jump out. Is it hard to like sit down and get back into a rhythm with everybody? Or have you done it enough that now it's just like, oh, hey, how's it going? Haven't seen you a couple of weeks. Time to get scared.
That's a good question. Everyone is such a strong role player that no, it actually, you jump in and it feels like second nature. You know, Sage and I had discussed how our first time interacting as Nika and Valentine, that was something where the friendship felt instantaneous just because of how she and I were able to work off each other. So even though I kind of dip out and then jump back in for various reasons, I've never felt like, you know, oh, you know, I got to get back into the groove. I'm not quite sure. Everyone is always just wonderful. Like, let's jump in, let's do it. Let's hit those points and it's wonderful, quite frankly. Everyone's fantastic.
So you've mentioned how much you love that kind of gothic horror, and then now jumping into Black Dice Society and being in all of the domains. Is there, besides Strahd, is there a specific thing about the domains of dread in general, or something in those specific that you really gravitate towards? Like, is there a specific domain or an aspect of horror that they explore that you really enjoy?
I always love the long game psychological thrillers, and there's a lot of that happens in these. For me, it's the realizing, oh wait, that seed got planted way, way back, and now it's coming back around. So it's those threads that I like to pull on and explore, and seeing that was something evident in Van Richten's, I was like, okay, yes, please, this is exactly the type of stuff that I adore getting to either play or run and that type of thing.
Absolutely. And as myself, I am not a horror person. I'll like dip in and dip out, but that's not usually my jam. But I loved how that book, how Van Richten's Guide was crafted just for someone like me, especially as a DM, being able to pull pieces out of it and pull bits and pieces out of it. And then just the care that it put into being careful with the fact that if you're going to run horror, there's a lot of conversations that has to happen between you and everybody. And I'd imagine, especially with you having to jump in and out, being a guest star, do you do those check-ins more often because of that? Or at this point, have you done it enough that everybody trusts that if something needs to be updated, you'll tell them?
It's more like the trust and update and, you know, keep conversing type of situation, which is fantastic. And it's also something I do as a DM myself, because I've run a couple of higher horror level or horror concept type of games as well. And it's always like, hey, we just finished this. You doing okay? Everyone all right? Anything get the squitch factor going that you weren't anticipating? Because sometimes you can be like, yeah, I'm totally cool with it. But because of how someone else might present it, suddenly you're just like, wait, nope, not as cool as I thought it was going to be. This is making me squidgy.
Yep.
So it's something where if you're going to run a game with a lot of horror aspects involved, communication is critical. Like, you need to make sure you are checking in with your players probably more often than you would with just a normal standard, hey, run around and, you go to a tavern, you meet, and then you go on a quest type of situation. So it's just, it's definitely something where you can customize and you can adjust and you can make things work for your players and even for yourself, as long as you approach your DM and be like, hey, you know what, this, can we maybe not?
Yeah.
And I find, more often than not, people are going to be willing to listen and work with each other to make sure everyone has fun, because ultimately that is the intent. It's a game.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
obviously those kinds of genres, it's super important, but even in just a standard adventure game, you can run across
Yes.
stuff, and it can be the kind of thing. I mean, you mentioned the, just because the way the DM did something, it hit you in a way that you weren't expecting. Sometimes you just, that day is just like, this is not a day I can deal with spiders. I thought
Yep.
I'm usually fine. You know what? Today, for whatever reason, just can we not? And being able to talk to your DM is super important about that kind of stuff. So, because
Absolutely.
it should be the fun house that everybody has bought the ticket to get on in.
Very much so. Yeah.
Speaking of your experience as a DM,
Yes.
so you have DM'd on screen for quite a number of things. You did some DMing work for Kobold Press, and then you also DM'd for D&D in a castle.
I did.
Yeah, which
Yeah.
that is super cool. So let's start with Kobold Press. And
Okay.
what has been your experience as DMing on a stream versus being a player on stream versus not? Like, what are some of the big highlights that are different?
For me, I actually enjoy being able to DM on screen because I do a lot of prep ahead of time. I get that world built in my head, just set up, ready to go. So that when it comes time for players to get introduced to this world, I love that I am slowly getting to reveal all these little aspects and details that I know are there, I know exist, but they don't know yet. And then also seeing what they will do with these details, because some of them will take, because I'll run the same thing over a couple times. So I might run the game a certain way and someone's going to lock on to this one little detail. And then suddenly they have the board behind them with the yarn and everything going. This must mean something. And I'm sort of like, dude, it's just a cup. But
it's just a chair. It's just
yeah.
a door. But
yeah, but it's fantastic starting with this world that you've created in your mind and then seeing what the players bring to it. It's just, I love feeding off of what a player will lock onto, what they will want to interact with, what NPC they're saying, like, I really like this NPC. We're going to have a half-hour conversation. For me, that is the bread and butter as a DM in my particular preference. I love to see what the players can give me and then work with that and then keep feeding things back to them because of it. So yeah, that's one thing I really enjoy when it comes to being live, because that happens. And you'll even see as the players get involved, the chat starts getting involved and they might start throwing things. And I'm like, you don't know it, but I just saw that comment and that's getting logged as a little idea for later. So it's just a fun, it's like community storytelling. So for me, I'm all about that factor. I love that people are sort of chipping in. I'm like, and I'm going to take that and I'm going to use that and bring this back around again later. And it's lovely. It's quite frankly a lovely thing to be able to experience and share with everyone.
Which is awesome. And then you take that DMing experience and you go stick it in a castle.
Yeah, which actually, true story. I started DMing in a castle way before I started DMing on streams.
First experience would be like, welcome to my castle.
Yeah.
I DM here all the time.
Right.
Tea service, please.
Welcome to my chambers.
Yeah.
No, it was fun though. It was cool to be immersed in well, quite frankly, the setting built itself because you're sitting in this room that has, these massive stone walls. You're looking out into a courtyard and everything like that. And it just gets people into the groove and ready to play a Dungeons and Dragons game. So it was a unique and wonderful experience. It was basically like summer camp for D&D players is sort of the best way to sum it up.
Was it challenging to come up with a D&D game did you feel like you had to center it on a castle and use what was around you, or were you excited to, or was it like, no, this is just an awesome location and people are going to be excited and I could put them in a swamp somewhere and they're still going to be happy?
Which I actually did, because I did BB's Place for the castle, which takes place in Louisiana during Prohibition. Like literally, they're in this swamp-like area and they're helping out BB at her place. And it was something where I was in there as they call them relief DMs. It's basically for the DMs who run the campaign all day, they get a break. So I was doing one shots. I'm like, well, I need something that's like a quick jump in, jump out, so the players could opt to come in or leave if they wanted to. And BB's was set up. I created it specifically so people could jump into the game and then head off if they wanted to, or had other things to do, or go back to their other game. And it just turned into this wonderful little, you know, situation where people got into the game and they were having fun with the game and they were enjoying themselves. They're still playing D&D, but it was D&D with a twist. You know, like there was a dance off between a Minotaur, a Goblin, and a Yuan-ti at one point.
Okay.
And it was wonderful. And the players actually got up and they were, you know, enacting what their different dance moves were, and the dice were telling the story and they were making the rolls. And it was such a memorable moment. It was so much fun. So yeah, I just went there. I'm like, everyone's here to play D&D. Let's make it fun. It was sort of my approach to the whole thing for that one.
And one shots that are kind of less serious are they're my preference. I know there's a lot of one shots that you can run that are just serious or intense or, you know, kick down the door kind of thing. But I love running the more silly kind of fanciful one shots that people are just laughing by the end of it. But and that had to be kind of a nice experience, to be that relief, to be that that moment, so that the DMs can have a chance to relax, and then the players can have a chance, you know, especially if they're playing a horror game or an intense game, and then come, you know, dance in a swamp.
Yep. It was just so much fun. It was, again, it just kind of gives you a mental break, but you're still playing the game you love. So yeah.
All right, so I've got one more stream I want to talk about, because I'm just going to indulge it as as now a regular cast member of D4, but also as a guest star on there. You have shown up on D4 on Sundays. Tell us a little bit about creating a cleric to show up for a one shot.
Oh, Patty Jameson. So it was one of those things where I was hanging out with Katie. And we were chatting about, oh, what should I do for this, you know, PC when I jump in for the game? And she's like, oh, well, the running joke is everyone plays the Dragonborn
cleric. Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, well, I will see your cleric, but I'm going to throw in a Firbolg. And it was one of those things. I was like, the characters tend to live in my head a little bit. So suddenly I started hearing this very, very specific voice. And I started talking to Katie, like, she goes, what are you doing? I'm like, I think I found my character's voice. She goes, oh my God, what is going on here? And so I started rolling up the PC, and Katie, as my witness, it had some seriously good rolls. And so I was like, I have just rolled a tank healer. Cool. So I started thinking about, well, what would Patty be like? Because she can heal, but she can also, you know, get into the thick of things and actually fight a little bit too. So I was like, okay, yeah, it's this Firbolg, and she's just this very much take it as it comes, and hey, how you doing? And she kind of became this anti-type to everyone she met. And I love the fact that at the end of her second episode, she was giving everyone in the party hugs. Like they all wanted hugs from Aunt Patty, basically. So it was just one of those things where I kind of drift into, when I first create the characters, I hear them and then I sort of analyze their personality and figure out what would make them make sense in terms of the class and race that I've chosen. And it just makes things, I like giving them individuality for my PCs. They're all different in their own ways. And I think that's why when the voice starts up, that's when I'm like, okay, now I can start. For me personally, at least.
I love that you're able to like key into that voice and get that early on. I feel like that's a really interesting way to develop that character. It's just like, well, I hear them in my head already. So and that usually happens after you've done like, I think I'll do this race or this class, or got some basics down, and then all of a sudden you're talking like Patty.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just, it's how it seems to be the way that I function in terms of creating my NPCs, my PCs. And even when I DM, it's like, oh, there's a voice that's spurring, who's it going to be? Or even when I get a module, I'm like, well, how would this particular character sound? And that's where, you know, Gabe from Scarlet Citadel came about, because they're describing him as this little boy. And I'm like, little boy. I'm like, well, maybe he's kind of like, oh, wait a minute. This is Gabe. Hi. And I kind of tapped into elements of what I have seen as a teacher, and Gabe became a combination of a few students that I taught. And I tapped into the sort of like, one would just ramble, like would come in the mornings and just ramble. So I'm like, okay, so he's going to be a rambler. One was a total non sequitur conversationalist. You'd start talking about one thing and suddenly you're talking about toads. So that came into play too. But it's just like, I'll tap into people that I've met. I'll tap into sort of what sort of living in my head already
Mm-hmm.
and pull these together, because for me, it's once those PCs and NPCs come to life, that's where I really can sort of sink my teeth in and get the game and story moving forward.
That's amazing. That's
Yeah.
super awesome.
Yeah.
I'm going to grab some questions from chat as we're
Awesome.
running out of time, but I don't want to ignore the chat. But we just got
No,
talking
no,
about a
no.
bunch of stuff.
We
And
did.
thank
Shocker.
you to Martin for grabbing questions from chat. If you do have any other last minute questions, get them in now before we're about to run out of time. But we've got Riot63 who says, I have about $200 worth of paints and minis. Wow. And I've yet to paint a single one. It's a bit intimidating. So would you have any advice for the person who has bought all the things and is now looking at it and is a bit worried?
Pick one of the minis and pick a feature on that mini that you want to learn how to paint and focus on that. Whether it's you want to learn how to paint their cape, whether you want to bring out the texture in the scales because it happens to be a dragon, or maybe it has feathers. Pick an aspect on that miniature and learn how to do that, knowing you're going to take that miniature like, I am just going to paint the wings. And that should help you kind of get over that hurdle of, but what if? And again, mistakes are things that are going to happen. I still make mistakes on my miniatures when I paint. I just know when I go back, oh, this is just going to be a quick little touch up here, or I can take a little bit of rubbing alcohol and remove that little whoops-a-daisy and go back in and fix it. Don't get caught up in the paint is permanent. Paint is not permanent. Newsflash, not permanent. You can always start over, and you could always go and get the same mini and try again too. So just focus on one aspect and start there.
I love that idea of like the one aspect, because I wouldn't have even thought about that, about, just really getting down to the minutia of it, of just, all right, I'm just going to take care of the feet. That's all I'm going to do. Just do the feet. And then it kind of just goes from there. It's like, well, now I got the feet, so I might as well go for the pantaloons. I might as well go for the wings. I might as well, I apparently have an Eric Coker in my head. Sorry. That's just.
Yeah, that's okay. I wonder why.
I got a lot of bird people in my head. Okay. Evil Emperor Zerg has a update for our Tiamat Mini. Apparently they checked yesterday and its wingspan is 28 inches.
Yeah, like I said. Ta-da! Yeah, that's my inseam. That's also my inseam, but I'm not flexible enough to show that off.
That is bigger than me. I'm just going to say it. My inseam is nope. But that's going to be amazing. Thank you for double checking. Dayad Last says, it's good to use kits as long as you don't steal them. That would be kidnapping, which is not a question. But I appreciate the pun, so I said it anyway. Oh, apparently it's 14 inches tall. Yes, now we're just getting updates on the oof.
Yeah.
That's a lot going on. So
it is.
Speaking of minis, we might as well hint at something in the next couple of weeks coming up on the C&E channel, on this channel right here. The two of us are going to be starting a mini painting show.
Yes.
I am excited.
I can't wait.
Yep, we've been putting together overlays and coming up with ideas of what we're going to paint and when we're going to have the show. And because I was excited when you came to work for C&E for a bunch of different reasons. And one of the main secondary reasons of like, well, she's awesome and she's amazing and she's fun to work with and she's brilliant, was that like the second tier of all of that was like mini painting show. So we will be announcing details soon, but if anyone has any requests for minis, we've already got kind of our initial list of the ones that we're going to dive into for various reasons. But if anyone has any requests of specific minis, no, we're not going to do the Tiamat.
No.
Because that would involve both of us having it. And I mean, my partner would love it if I owned that mini.
It's a maxi.
Yeah. I don't know if we have enough room in this apartment for it though. But yes, if you have any suggestions, definitely message us on any of the social medias, and we'll get to the one of us, and we'll keep that in mind. But we're probably going to be talking about a lot of the stuff that you've already talked about at the beginning of this interview, of like how to get started and things to work on, and getting suggestions from the audience about like, what would you like to learn about? So definitely come prepared. And it'll be a nice slightly more casual hangout, a little bit more relaxed, since we're going to be doing it on a regular basis. And I love that immediately TTRPG Gifts, who we love, has formally requested an owlbear, which, you know, are lovely.
They exist.
I mean, owlbear, it's hard to argue with owlbear. They are adorable. Also, it's hard to argue with TTRPG Gifts because they're amazing.
Truth. Absolute truth. Yes.
I will add owlbear to the list. It's probably not going to be the first one. I'm excited about the first one. But stay tuned for announcements about that. And unfortunately, we have to start to wind down because there is Developer Insights coming on just after this. So once we are done, stick around in the chat, as we will have two of our amazing developers talking about all the things that you want to hear about for Idle Champions. But before we go, V, where can people find out more about you and, well, the awesome things that you do?
Best place to find out what I'm up to is to go follow me on Twitter at @V_Muse. That's usually my most active point. You can also find me on Instagram. I'll post pictures over there every so often. Facebook, it kind of happens. It's sort of there.
There's only so many social medias we can keep up with. Like, you have to pick a couple that interest you, and then the rest,
they exist. They're there. Like, you might find me on things like TikTok. That is literally a name placeholder. You know, but yeah, Twitter is definitely the best place to find me. You can also check out thecraftingmuse.com. It has other information that you could use to scope out and check out other things as well. But those are your two best starting points, Twitter and my website.
Perfect. It's a wonderful place to start. Definitely go check out all of the awesome things that they're doing. Stay tuned for more mini painting on this channel, and stay tuned for more awesome Idle Champion stuff coming up in just a few minutes. Thank you once again to our awesome producer moderator, Martin, for all of your help in the chat. Thank you to everyone in chat for hanging out with us for this hour for Idle Insights. Thank you to Todd for saying, hey, would you take over for this week? I have V on as a guest. And I went, okay. Yeah, sure. That I can do that. Sure. I can chat with her for an hour. That's easy. And with that, we'll see you next encounter. Bye.
Bye.